Welcome to Minding My Business. I have Randy Boldyga with me, who is the founder and CEO of RXNT. He has grown this incredible healthcare company from scratch, you guys. And, you know, like SaaS companies are a beast, I think. And you have been able to do it without funding, without outside investors. I mean, it's incredible. And how long have you been in business now?
Yeah, so we've been in business for 26 years.
Just when was the 26th year?
In May.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was 25. And how many employees do you have?
Just about 200.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Now, I was reading that the whole reason why you decided, because you didn't have a healthcare background before.
Yeah, a little bit of healthcare.
A little bit, okay.
Yep. I worked at UAMS Medical Center down in Little Rock, Arkansas for just a short period of time, like 2 years.
How did you end up there? What were you doing in Arkansas?
Yeah, so interesting story there. I was working for the FBI. Yeah, so I was working.
What were you doing with the FBI?
Working on the Whitewater investigation.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So,
on the tech side of things?
On the tech side of things.
Okay.
And decided that I wanted to pursue a opportunity at a medical center. So I did. And so I got a little bit of insight there on the challenges in the clinical environment that physicians were having day to day.
Well, that's a big decision to leave the FBI to go into healthcare.
Yeah, it was definitely a different course of action or pace of life. But I liked the Little Rock area and thought this would be something fun and different. And so, yeah.
So were you not there before? Were you living somewhere else and then you moved for the job?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I lived in the Annapolis, Maryland area and didn't know where I was going with the FBI, but I was hired as a consultant and they said, we can't tell you where you're going, but yeah, so that's once I signed up and said, yes, I'm ready to go. They handed me tickets to Little Rock, Arkansas, winner, chicken dinner.
Right. Never are they like, guess what? You get to live in LA. No.
Exactly.
What did you learn working in the FBI that helped set you up for success today?
Yeah, I had worked for several federal agencies and, what I was doing was a lot of setting up and designing the architecture for computer systems. And, we were doing cloud-based computing before it was called cloud-based computing. And so, the designing and implementation of those systems for those government agencies led me to have a strong background in healthcare IT. So when I started this company, RXNT, that was I had a really robust background in the IT infrastructure. Yep.
That's incredible. Well, I mean, I've been in healthcare tech for a long time, I feel, obviously on a different side, but I was shocked. I remember when we first met that I was like, wow, they've never gotten funding. Like, this is insane. It was really surprising to me. And I was shocked because I don't think I personally know any other practice management solutions or EHRs that are not either part of a much, much larger entity or significantly venture backed for many, many reasons, not just for funding, but just to get the product out there in general.
Yep.
So then you crossed over to healthcare. You left the FBI.
Yep.
Was that a big decision to leave the FBI? Because I feel like I would be can you go back to the FBI once you leave? Yeah. Or they're once you're out, you're out?
No, I think I could go back.
Okay.
But it was, like I said, I felt like it was time to kind of move on. I had learned what I needed to learn, was doing what I needed to do there. But I felt like I would have a very much an entrepreneurial spirit, and a lot of the government agencies don't lend themselves well to that sort of spirit. So I felt like I needed to do something else.
I think that's the one thing, when you're an entrepreneur, even if I always say I used to work for someone and there was always a ceiling. Like I would just bust, like we'd set a goal and I would hit the goal so fast. And I always say like, if that person had like a bigger vision, I would have always found my way. Like I think sometimes we're forced to become entrepreneurs because it's like, if you kill an entrepreneur's spirit, there's like nothing worse. I feel like that is like the ultimate, like you could dock their pay, you could do a lot of it. If you kill their spirit, it's like
100%.
Oh, it's like you're dying. And that's how I felt at one point. I was like, I feel like I'm dying inside. Like there's no amount of money that they could continue to like, even I remember at one point they were to try to keep me, they were like, oh, like I'll sell you part of the company. And I was just like, I don't want it.
Yes.
You guys like crushed me too many times.
Yeah.
But so I get that. So then you go to healthcare and what are you doing there?
Yeah. So at UAMS Medical Center? Yeah, so at UAMS Medical Center, I oversaw the clinical information systems there. So there were about, 75 to 100 employees in different clinical environments that reported to me throughout the medical center. And so I was managing folks that were developing software. I was managing folks that were supporting infrastructure, new projects, you name it. And so, I learned a lot, but I also had some insight on the challenges that physicians were having in that environment and firsthand knowledge of what they were doing and why they were struggling. And so, Did
you feel like you could solve that when you were there?
I was solving problems while I was there, but it was using software, off-the-shelf software that was then being customized by our team. And so I felt like I was certainly, making a difference, but there's nothing like making a difference by owning your own company.
At what point in time were you like, I'm going to build my own health tech company? And build software for hospitals and doctors?
Yeah. So it all started in May of 1999, and that was the beginning. And I started writing a business plan and went to some friends and family and said, hey, this is the idea. And I got some friends and family to pony up small amounts of money that totaled like $150,000. And then I went to the local economic development and said, hey, I raised $150,000. Is there something that, some sort of a program that I can use under the county? And they said, there's actually an SBA loan where they'll match every dollar that you raise up to that 150. So they matched our $150,000 with SBA loan, which I had to kind of sign my life away, if you will.
I know that SBA.
Yeah. And then 2 years later, I did the same thing a second time.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And then a year later, we signed a contract with Medco where they bought 1,000 licenses of our product. And for those who don't know who Medco is, they're like, I think at the time they were number 43 in the top 50 largest companies in America. So,
wow.
Yeah. So they bought 1,000 licenses, and I turned around and took the money that we made and went and paid those 2 loans back off, and I was debt free. Yeah.
It feels good to build debt free.
Yes. 100%.
There's a lot. I've gone back and forth on because I have a lot of friends that have companies and they're like, some of them are in the billions, and they're just like, oh, we'll die in debt. And then there's some that are like, building more in like a stealth mode. And do you have any what is your thought on raising capital or like building with debt? Like, can you build a company debt free? Is that even possible?
Yeah. So that's pretty much what I did.
Okay.
There were 2 paths. I could either go down the venture capital path or I could do this thing debt free. And I just took the old bricks and mortar debt free approach. Honestly, it was because at the beginning, early 2000s was the .com meltdown. There was no capital to be found.
Right.
And all of my competitors who had raised, 20, 30, 50, 100 million in capital they were going out of business left and right, and all their clients came to my company. And so we grew very quickly because everybody was just looking for a product that actually was up and running. It was crazy. It was very good timing. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's divine timing.
Yeah.
There it was.
Yeah, and we were literally running this thing out of the basement of my house. It was crazy. It was just like, who does this, right? But you hear stories like about Microsoft, and they started in a basement or garage, right? But it was very similar.
I mean, I also have friends who have even someone I know, like I was on I think we were on a Zoom call, and she was like, I think they're doing like at least 100 million, but she's like, yeah, this is the team, and it's literally in her basement.
Wow.
You never know.
Wow. Yeah.
And you just, so I'm like, I feel like the work environment has changed in that way, where you can really you can be remote if you choose, you can be hybrid, you can kind of create it, like whatever kind of work environment you want. It doesn't have to be like this is what we are. We're in this building during these times.
Yeah. Yeah, this was, you got to remember, this was back 20 some years ago.
Which was unheard of.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I remember trying to work from home a couple of days, like in the afternoon, and I had to I really had to fight for that. Like nobody got it. I was like, you guys, it's from like 2 to 5.
Yeah.
Because my kids are getting older, and like, it was just like, I don't know if we can do that. Like I'm literally in my office anyway.
Yes.
I'm doing the same exact thing. So, but that was during a time where like it was not like if people knew I was working from home, they're like, what do you do? Like, how do you do that? Like they were so perplexed.
Yeah. And the economic development folks, when I laid out my business plan, they were like, okay, and where is the financial, the expense for your office space? Yeah. And I was like, there isn't any. And they were like, yeah, this isn't realistic. And I was like, no, we're going to run this out of the basement of my home. So for the next 2 years. And they were like, okay. And I said, is that okay with you guys? And they were like, we love it. And I was like, really? And I was like, yeah, because we now know that you're not taking on an expense and debt that you can't afford. And so we know that this money is going to last you longer. And I was like, okay. So fast forward, I had 5-6 people coming to my house in the basement. And one day I'm cooking dinner at 7 o'clock in the evening, and 2 of the employees are up there. They were having a disagreement about something, and they're in my kitchen having this discussion with me. And I look at my wife and say, it's time to move this thing out of the house.
Or feed them.
Or feed them, right.
Either give them some food or get them out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
Do any of those people still work for you today?
Yeah, they sure do.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I have one gal who, Megan Wake, who, or Cruz, her name is, she's gotten married. But anyway, she has been with the company like 24 years now, I think. Wow. And then Thomas has been with the company, I think, 22 years. So yeah, we have several employees with quite a bit of tenure.
Wow, that's a lot of lifetime together.
It is. So she literally will talk about at the annual meetings, employee, meetings, about how she used to sit out on the back deck of my house and eat at my house and eat her lunch.
That's so nice. We have a client local in LA, and there's like people who have been there. They started when they were like 14, 15, and now they're like in their 70s and they're still there working for them. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yep.
I was reading somewhere that part of the inspiration for creating RXNT was like an ineligible, like you couldn't, like a script that was, you couldn't, could you tell me about that? Because I didn't really, all I saw was just like, it wasn't eligible, like you couldn't read it or something, and then the infant died? Yes. So it was a child in Northern Virginia, named Brendan Ward, I believe. Oh, wow. And he, his parents took him to a pediatrician. Pediatrician wrote a script. We see this every day in our lives. And the parents took the script to the pharmacy. The pharmacy thought they read it accurately, but it was illegible. And so they filled the prescription. The parents gave the child the medication, and he died. Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
so sad.
So I read that in the paper and was like, oh, wow, like, how is this happening? Like at this day and age, it was 1999 and I'm like, how's this happening?
Right.
And so I went to my local pediatrician from when I was a kid and he was still in business, 75 years old, right? And I started a conversation with him, like, what do you folks do? Like, how's this work in your office? And he started explaining, yeah, we still write everything on a prescription pad. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And so started a conversation about what's that look like if we were to build something, and is this something you would use? And he was like, yeah, I could definitely see this working.
And that was the first product you created, was e-scribing, right?
That's correct. So we started, what we recognized is that, the stepping stone to adoption of a full electronic medical record was starting with electronic prescribing, because, there were a lot of reasons that doctors were going to pick this up. It was just a huge inefficiency the way they were doing it today. And we thought, if we can just make this legible and make it super efficient and easy, because all the formularies that doctors have to comply with, or the different health plans, makes it very difficult.
Yeah.
So, and then there's the drug-to-drug interactions and the drug-to-allergy interactions, and getting the script to the right pharmacy so that the patient isn't having to stand at the pharmacy for 45 minutes waiting for their prescription
to find out it's the wrong CVS.
Yeah. So, we built an application that worked on a Palm Pilot, if you remember the old Palm Pilots. Yeah. So that was our first product, and docs would write scripts for a few patients, and then they would sync their Palm 3, the Palm Pilot, and they would hit a little button and it would sync, and it would send them to the pharmacy by fax at first. Yep. And then the network, I guess, matured. SureScripts was born. SureScripts was our routing network that got us electronically into the pharmacy's software system.
I think this is also a good thing for business owners, or just even if you're aspiring entrepreneurs, is really just sometimes just solving one problem. I think sometimes when people think about going into business, or maybe they're in business, they're trying to be everything to everyone.
Yes.
And even if you want to be, or you can be, sometimes just solving that one problem gives you the pathway to open up so many more opportunities for you. Even with myself, we started off, I thought leadership. I was just I knew how to get into all the publications. I knew bylines better than anybody else. And I was like, let's just start with that, start with thought leadership. And then it turned into a whole, now we do activations, we do all these things, but we didn't at first.
Yeah.
It was really focused on personal branding, thought leadership. And at the time, no one was really doing that yet. So I think that, to your point, just focusing on that one. And it was a pain point for me too at the time, because personal brands were first starting to emerge. Mm-hmm. Executives were realizing actually we need to have a face to our company. So CEOs were kind of figuring out how to share what is thought leadership, what are they doing, but they needed to do it. So it was solving that one problem. And I like how you kind of just tackled the prescription issue. And it's let me just solve this pain point.
Yes.
And then that led to, okay, now we have a routing issue. Let me solve the routing issue.
Yes.
And then you continued to be successful in that capacity. And then what were some of the new other products from there that you added on?
Yeah. So, we just continued to listen to our clients, and I think that that's a really important thing for any entrepreneur to understand, is just listen to your client and let them tell you the things that you're doing right and wrong, because you're not going to get it all right. Nobody is, right? But, our clinicians were saying, hey, this is a great e-prescribing tool. It can do everything I need, but I really need to be able to have a full electronic medical record for my patient. So we were like, okay, tell us about that. What's that look like? What are the challenges? What do we need to do? And so we built an electronic medical record product in 2012.
I feel like you're listening to because I'm sitting here and I'm like, how did that not dawn on people back then? How is that not an obvious problem to solve?
Yeah.
But I think you're doing it again with this new product that you have coming out too, which I'm really excited about. I know everyone's kind of in the AI space, but when we were just talking about it, I know I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce it.
Sure.
And then I'm going to put my thoughts into it because I'm excited about it.
Sure. So the new product that we're about to release is called Ambient IQ. So basically, in a nutshell, we have a mobile application that providers use today, and both mobile for Android and iPhone, but also can be pulled up on a PC. Mm-hmm. And within that application, they can pull up a patient, select a patient encounter, and then they click a button that says listen, and they put that device in the middle of the between them and their patient, and they can just have the consult with the patient, and the Ambient IQ product literally takes all that content and populates their patient encounter so that they're not having to literally enter all that information into the system. And we're seeing results already because we've introduced this 3 weeks ago to our existing client base, and we're showing that there's a 70% decrease in time that a doctor is having to spend documenting with the patient. And there's a 95% accuracy rate on that particular, on the content that's being picked up during the conversation. It's pretty amazing.
And we'll get into how you're building it too, but what I think is amazing about this is that I don't know of any other technology out there right now in healthcare that is actually capturing what the patient is saying as well. And the fact that because I even immediately, we were having this conversation, I've been to doctor's offices and they're like, it has has a functionality of it, but it's very much driven by the doctor initiating the fact that it needs to come on and telling it what it needs to put in. So there still is that gap of information, it's not capturing what I'm saying. And I've always felt I'll go into the dark. I'm like, okay, but yeah, I told you guys that last time. I told you that a couple times ago, or I've been mentioning this, and I know that physicians are just super busy and you're not going to always see the same physician in the office every single time. And sometimes it's the PA, sometimes, you might not need to actually see your doctor. But I think that I'm very excited about the way that this is moving, because when someone was in medical school and it had to do with women, and she was trying to figure out what was wrong with this woman. And so she brought it to her supervising physician, or, she was, and he said, okay, well, check off all these boxes. And if you can't do that, then she's a WW. And she's like, well, what does that mean? And he said, a whiny woman. And that was a real thing in medical school and in medical practicing. And so I'm just thinking what I'm excited about. And I can see how because I know when I've heard even with my own children, things have been wrong with them, stuff has happened, and I'm and you have to fight. And there's a lot of parents out there who don't know how to fight for their kids' healthcare or their own healthcare. And these doctors are overwhelmed, or they just don't have all the information. And so there's this bias that's in there that's in one ear, out the other. So you might be saying a key thing that is happening, but it's not getting picked up. So what I'm really excited about your product is that it's capturing the patient side, and it's going to capture that one keyword maybe that's then going to signal to the physician, hey, you might want to take a look at this, because also it's going to be, I know it's going to continue, your software is going to continue to evolve.
Yes.
But then it's going to be able to say, hey, all these other medical records are also kind of flagging this, and now all this information, you might want to check out this list of things. Yes. And that's what I'm just really excited for that, because I feel like we're going to finally get the care that we deserve as humans. And there's been so many cases where there's diseases out there that people don't even really know about. They exist, but they don't fit the standard. And even in my own family, my mom has a very rare disease that's genetic, and she ultimately ended up finding out what it was through 23andMe.
Oh, wow.
But she had been going to UMass, Boston Hospital, Brigham and Women's, really good hospital systems for a long time. And they were just oh, well, you have lung issues, or you have this or that. And then it wasn't until her brother died in his late 50s or early 60s, but very young of this same thing.
Okay. And
so now she's able to get treatment for it. But I think that's a perfect example of what exists out there, that you can have someone presenting as something and they're just going to be oh, well, maybe you're a little overweight, or maybe you just have asthma.
Yeah.
but it could be like way more. So that's what I'm really excited about, like where AI is headed, and especially with your product capturing what the patient is saying.
Yeah, so it's interesting. You were touching on something that was our very first AI solution, and that was a clinical summary on a patient. So what clinicians were telling us is, I only have a few minutes between patient visits to review the next patient's history before walking in the room. So they'll grab that chart, review it, and then walk in the room. Mm-hmm. How much can you read in a handful of minutes on a patient's chart when they could have a chronic issue that is several pages long.
They might not even have it there.
So what we did was we created a clinical summary that's all AI based, and it gives an overview based on all the content in the patient's record regarding that particular topic. And it gives a summary. And then if the clinician needs to drill deeper, they obviously can do that. But it helps them get a snapshot so that, to your point, they're not going into talk to the patient and the patient saying, I've told you this multiple times. They're reading that in the chart.
Have you been able to use that data that you've been gathering for the last 26 years to create this product that you've now created?
Absolutely. So we grabbed a lot of that content, de-identified it, ran it through our AI engine to make our AI engine, it is a native-based ambient AI product. So which is different than a lot of those out there on the market, but we believe that all that data helped make our product the better product.
And I think we should explain what being native means.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry. So native means you're building it within your own platform. Yeah. It's not a third-party product. That you're basically leveraging their technology within your technology. And there are some advantages to that. We like to think that because we've built it and we are managing it, that it is going to become a superior product to others on the market. But it also means we can be much more competitive in our price, and we can control the data a lot better.
So if you're a patient, you're really going to want to ask your provider if they're using RXNT as part of their technology, because I think that that's important as we move forward, is to understand it's not just about like, okay, who is your doctor? I like them. Like, no, you have to, I think today, like really drill on like, what is the technology you're using? How are you using these things? Because that's going to ultimately mean better care for you. And it could mean saving your life at some point in time too.
Absolutely.
Because it's going to reduce the risk of error significantly. And then I think we chatted too about like the Microsoft stat that they came out with, that I think it was like 80%, I'll have to double check, but it was some high number that the AI got the diagnosis correct. Mm-hmm. And it was like only 30% of the time did these Harvard-trained doctors get the diagnosis correct. Yeah. Maybe even less than that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I haven't read that, but you were mentioning that earlier. That's a pretty remarkable statistic.
Look at the data. Rachel, can you pull up the data on what Microsoft said about what I just said? Thank you. Yeah, and then we'll touch on the accuracy of that. But it's somewhere around there. It's pretty astounding, I think. But I think that's something like when I heard you were coming out with this product, I was like, okay, this could really actually change the way that we receive care. This isn't, yes, it's going to make doctors 70% more efficient. It's going to save them time, all of that. Of course, it's going to trickle down to better care. But I think it's these little nuances, like combining now the case summaries with what's being said. Like, I mean, even with my own self meeting with clients, sometimes like I can just be so present in the moment, but then also listen to the call, get the AI summary, and be like, oh, okay, that's right. They did mention that, because it wasn't a key piece of information at that time, but it is important for me to know.
Yeah.
85%. So Microsoft's AI system correctly diagnosed up to 85% of complex cases, and then more than 4 times the 20% accuracy rate of a group of experienced physicians.
Wow.
Right. That's and I'm pretty sure they were Harvard trained. I'm like, Harvard, step it up. No, just kidding.
Off the record.
Right. Yeah, off the record. No, I love Harvard. But yeah, that's crazy statistics, right?
That certainly is.
Like this is like round 1.
Yeah.
This isn't even like refined AI. So the fact that like, now Ambient's taking 26 years worth of data from providers and patients, and like nobody had been tracking. It's not like Microsoft was tracking data like that over the last 26 years. So I'm going to be really excited to see what your statistics are, if we can calculate that, because I mean, that's so many. Do you know, would you even know how many patients that is total? Like that you...
Yeah, I haven't crunched the numbers.
We got to crunch the numbers,
yeah, we need to crunch the numbers, because I think it's going to be pretty interesting. There's a lot of encounters every day with tens of thousands of doctors using our technology. So
over 26 years.
Yeah.
Like this is, I mean, I'm incentivized now to also be like asking, are you using this technology? Because I want my notes and my case, like I want my records compared to hundreds and thousands and millions of other people to maybe find that one little thing that's like, oh, hey, it's this little issue. I mean, I think every single one of us has had something go on, and correct me if I'm wrong if you haven't, that you have just gone down the rabbit hole, and it's like you come to find out it has nothing to do with what they even thought it had to do with.
Yeah.
Right?
I know what you're talking about.
Have you had something like that happen?
I personally haven't, but people in my family have, and I've witnessed it, yes.
Okay, something where they're like, oh, yeah, and then you come to find out, and it's like this whole time you thought it, and maybe like the issues were somewhat related or something, but then it's like, oh, boom, that's what it is, and then your problem solved.
Yes. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
And what I find interesting is the feedback we're getting from clinicians already is that, wow, I'm spending so much more time with my patient, and I didn't realize how much time I was spending with my head down documenting the encounter and not looking at my patient and spending time talking to them. And it's really a game changer. I feel like I'm back before the day when I had to enter everything into the computer. So I think that's a huge benefit. Like, and doctors are going to be picking this stuff up much faster than maybe a lot of other technology.
I think a lot of other technology has promised to give doctors back their time, but it hasn't.
No. Yeah, we've been hearing that for a while. Yeah.
And I think like the intention is there, but there is always that like one missing thing. Like maybe back in the eSure days, it was like the routing, that didn't but once that problem was solved, it's like it really tied it all in together. And I think this is going to be the first thing, because there is nothing like this on the market right now.
Yeah. I mean, physician burnout is real. I mean, there are lots of physicians who left medicine because they just were tired of documenting. So I think this is game changer stuff, and I think we're really, that's why we're here today talking about this. I just felt like it was that important that we get the word out. No,
this is huge. This is huge for practices to be integrating into their current
absolutely
EHRs, right? Yeah.
Yep.
I think what's unique is that you've had this data this whole time, and you've been building this, not knowing that this is coming. And it's like, now it's here, and because what's different is like, there's a lot of companies out there, just so if you're listening to this podcast, you realize like they might have been like adjacent to healthcare. Maybe they're trying to dip their toes into it, or they had something. So they go and they raise all this money to maybe try to do what Randy is doing, or, but they're always missing a component of it. So in this case, like they might have to go and get like a data model or bring that piece in, but it doesn't have the data that Randy has, because it hasn't been building that over. I mean, you really couldn't even purchase this. This data would be, if you had to purchase this data, it would be cost prohibited unless you were like a Google or a Microsoft or something. And even then to get aggregated all from the different sources, like you work with so many different practice modalities, and what you work all across healthcare. So it's that's really cool too, because you have every aspect from like the mental health to family practices to OBs, like you're across the spectrum. So this data is pulling from all those sources, and that in and of itself, I think, is making the technology different, but also the fact that it's capturing both the conversations. Because what's out there right now is there's technology out there that captures the physician's conversation. So they might be able to like pull up their phone and be like, here's the notes, or maybe they're on their PC and they're saying, here's the diagnosis, ... But but that's it. So this is different where it's literally a living, breathing thing inside of the room with you working. The agents and the AI and the machine learning are all working together to create the notes based on what you're saying and then integrate it into your record and pulling from other sources as well to alert the physician like, hey, you might want to rule out X, Y, and Z. And that's not out there yet.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be helpful if it was if you didn't have the data. It would only be half helpful.
Yeah, so a lot of the systems that are out there today, the challenge is that they're capturing all this great information, but then they're not integrated with the electronic medical record systems. So what physicians are doing is they're getting this data, and then they have to literally take it out of that application, and they have to copy and paste it into our application. And the copying and pasting is probably as painful as just writing this stuff out, or speaking into like a nuances Dragon product. I mean, I don't know that there's a lot of value in what those products are offering because of that transfer of data. So I feel like this is, RXNT having already tens of thousands of providers using our EMR, and now this is built into the EMR so that as they're speaking, it's populating it right into our system is a huge difference because they're not having to copy and paste data. It's populating it right into the product.
And do you think that another thing that makes it unique is that other EMRs, like they haven't been building this whole time with AI in mind, but you have, it sounds like, because you can take it all the way back to the case summaries.
Yeah, so there are other EMRs that have partnered with some They have partnered.
Right,
and they're
so that's
leveraging that technology of a partner. I think there may be one other vendor who's created a native built application, but almost everybody that I'm aware of is partnering with somebody. So that's another reason that it's pretty cool. But we like to think that even when we introduce our standalone product, like it's going to be significantly less than almost everybody on the market.
Because you built it yourself.
Because we built it ourselves, and we're really trying to, promote adoption of this thing, and we want to get it out there and get the word out. And yeah.
I feel like something that stands out about your practice management platform for doctors is that it seems that you really understand them. And that's kind of the feedback that I constantly hear about
Yes.
Is that it's not like, I think physicians, whatever you want to call them, like they always feel like, oh, someone's trying to give me this software. And like, they don't really know what it's like to live and breathe who we are and how we truly operate. And that I think has been a big differentiator for RXNT.
Absolutely. Yeah. What I learned early on, you would think, every doctor's office runs like the next doctor's office, like the way you walk into a McDonald's and that McDonald's is run just like the McDonald's in the next city over, right? Absolutely doesn't work like that, and, which makes it very difficult for software vendors like myself to create software for them, because what works in doctor office A doesn't necessarily work in doctor office B because they do things differently than the other doctor might do, operate. And so in his day-to-day practice. So we had to make the software so it was customizable or flexible enough to work in these different sort of office environments. And so, but we've listened to our client base. I think that's one of the key reasons why we've been so successful over 26 years and have grown by 30% every year, because we're just sitting and listening to our, it seems like so common sense, but you'd be surprised there's, others I don't think are doing this. So
I see that in technology a lot. I remember even like years and years ago, I mean, this was like probably 20 years ago, and I used to be a trader, and I never had any trade errors. That probably over 100,000 trades easy at the time. And I got one error one time, and it was because they rebuilt our trading platform. And I remember I went and I like fought it because I just remember there being such a disconnect between like me as the trader and then these like engineers who had nothing to do with like the actual trades. And I remember like I would not accept the trade. I didn't end up having an error, just so everyone knows. Because I was like,
I don't know if I believe this.
I'm like, you are not giving me an error. No way. But I remember just kept telling them like, naturally flowing, how would I know to check on this other screen to see if these funds have cleared or, that doesn't make sense for me entering in a trade where every moment matters.
Right.
And I think that's what you've done really well is like you've built these pieces of your platform and you're stacking them on things that really matter.
Yes.
And so then it's like I love that you're solving actual problems, not these like, oh, I'm kind of solving this problem, but it creates another problem.
Yes.
And then it's like, okay, great. We have this clunky system. And then you see all these complaints online and these doctors are like, get me my money back. Like you never see that with RXNT, which is phenomenal. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. We pride ourselves on having a product team that really spends a lot of time and energy talking to our clients about what they like and what they dislike, and then, going through multiple iterations of that, those changes to the product before they're released to our community. And so getting it right is really important, especially when you have a large, number of providers using your software. The littlest change can really upset folks. So we've learned that you really have to be careful and make sure that the changes you're making not only work well, but are thoughtful and how they're how the changes are made and how the community is going to accept them or not.
And be willing to listen. I think if you're building a product, make sure you're also like another thing I've noticed that you guys do really well is you're not just talking to the providers, you're talking to the front office staff. Mm-hmm. You're talking to the people who are actually using the system and you're listening to them like, okay, I get it. Like if you need to update this is how, like that's such a miss with so many products out there is they're just thinking about like the CTO that's signing the purchase order for it, or they're not really thinking about the person in customer service that's taking the phone call, that's actually using this platform, or even sometimes the customer. And it's like sometimes I even go shopping on apps and I'm like, who built this? Yeah. Like who built this? I'm trying to spend way more money with you and I can't.
Yeah. We our product people will say, hey, Dr. Bob, we need to talk to your scheduling people about your scheduler, because we're thinking about making this change and we need to get their feedback and input on exactly, how this should look, the functionality needs to what that functionality needs to look like and feel like in order to work most efficiently for them.
So now that you're growing this company and you have almost 200 employees, right? Like I want to talk to you about we were talking earlier about like how this concept of cycling your time and energy into different problems or people or just areas that need your attention. Can you talk to me about that process a little bit? Because that resonated with me.
Yeah, sure. So what I was mentioning is that, annually, like every company, we go through a budgeting process, right? Mm-hmm. And so I take that time to kind of do my own sort of year in review. And I look at what did we do right? What did we do wrong? And what are the areas that we feel like we need to concentrate this next year? So obviously that all goes into budgeting, but what do I also do is say, okay, so great, we're going to, for example, put a lot more money into the marketing department, let's just say, right?
Yeah. Could you put it into PR?
So yes,
can we have some more budget?
So, so obviously what we will do is I will say to myself, hey, I need to not only put more money into the marketing department, but I need to put time and energy into that department and spend, more time with our marketing, chief marketing officer and concentrate a lot more, put a lot more cycles into in that particular part of the business, because I feel like in order for us to get to that next level, we need to make sure I'm giving all my time and energy that I can to that particular area of the company. So, and every year I go through this. So there are years when it's the sales area, and another year where we may be engineering is perhaps, not our strength, and we need to really beef it up. And so a few years ago it was AI, right? You spent, a lot of 2 years ago and last year building an AI team so that we could release AI products this year. So, yeah. So.
I like the idea, though, of the cycling, because I think it's a good way to even describe to your team what you're doing. Because, it can feel sometimes like, oh, no, the CEO is involved, like we're not doing something right, or like things might get a little disruptive, because that's typically like, I think a really good CEO or a really good founder, like we're great at finding problems, and even just like sometimes creating problems that don't exist, but do ultimately end up making a better situation after.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, you just know what to tweak. But I really love the idea of saying like, hey, these are the 4 cycles we're going to work on. And that way it also is like, whatever that cycle needs to be, it can be. It doesn't have to be like this. Because sometimes I find breaking this stuff up into quarters or things like, you just might have something that comes up that needs your attention. And it's like, okay,
Absolutely.
well, that's great that we wanted to do that in Q2. But I also think that thought of like, it doesn't give the organic time that it needs to, because sometimes that cycle could last a day. It could just be all hands on deck for a day, and then you solve the problem and you move on.
Yeah.
But like, you don't really know until you're in the trenches of it. And then I've also had things where I'm like, okay, this should take me a couple days, and I'm like, this is a big problem.
Yeah.
We'll be working on this all year.
Right. Yeah, I tend to concentrate like on particular departments within an annual cycle. I may, to your point, get into these mini cycles where I feel like a particular issue has popped up and it requires my attention. But I, as a general statement, try to concentrate on a particular department or departments within, like, obvious as a good example, you shouldn't concentrate on sales if your product isn't complete, right? Or where it needs to be. So you have to concentrate on engineering, and engineering needs to get the product out the door, and it needs to be quality before you can expect to spend money. So marketing, right? You're going to spend money on marketing that product. And then when you market the product, then you've got to have your sales team ready to roll. So they have to be up to speed. And you might have a 2-person sales team, and you realize you need a 10-person sales team. And so you've got to train all those people, bring them up to speed. And so there are steps that you go through, and some of those steps can take significant periods of time.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, and it feels a little bit better too to think about it as a cycle, especially if it's like a year-long or 2-year project. Because sometimes it does feel like, even when there's things that I'm trying to tackle, I'm like, oh, but I do like the idea of just thinking about it like, okay, well, this is this cycle. And it also helps you, I think, measure backwards, which makes you feel better, because you're like, okay, well, where were we at the beginning of the cycle versus what was the calendar timing of this, which can feel a little defeating sometimes.
It can.
So I like the idea of like, I'm already seeing like the visual of like, here's where we want to be and here's where we're at in the cycle. And maybe you're halfway through, which is great. But if you thought about, oh, well, we've been doing this for 2 years, that doesn't really matter as much anymore once you see that you're actually like already 50% of the way there or something or more. So I really like that, because it's hard, building business is hard. Like, you know that. And sometimes it's just like,
I used to say, make this joke to the team. I wish I could tell you guys that I was watching ice melt, but the ice melts faster than things are happening around here. And nobody wanted to hear that, but it was what I would say when I was frustrated with the team. But anyway, to your point, the cycles take time, and it's just part of the process.
What would you say are the 3 biggest lessons that you have learned in business?
Wow.
I'm going to hit you with 3.
Yeah. So 3 things I've learned. I would say probably top of the list is listen to your clients. use the old bricks and mortar business model as much as you can. And what I mean by that is don't spend more money than you're generating in revenue. So to me, that's a huge one. And I could go back to that story about the IRS to say, don't mess with the IRS.
Don't mess with the IRS.
Yeah. So back in the second year of owning RXNT, I was doing payroll manually and not paying the payroll taxes. And I learned a lesson that, so they were sending letters and then they just seized the money out of our bank account. So
you're like, lesson learned.
Right. So I would say just make sure you're staying in good graces with all the government agencies and you'll be good.
What do you think about the saying of fire fast, hire slow? Right? No. Yeah. Fire fast, hire slow.
If I could put a fourth on there, and maybe that's even the first, I would, to the point around the HR stuff, I would say, making sure you have a really solid team around you, hires people that are smarter than you, that are really dedicated. I know it's not easy when you're an entrepreneur and you're looking for your first hires because it's really hard sometimes to read people and properly interview people because you may not know how to do that properly, but finding good people is really important. And so to your point about the fire quick and take your time hiring, we 100% do that at RXNT. We've been really thoughtful about the people we've hired. I like to think we have a really good team now. It's taken years to get there, but all of our executive team members do a wonderful job in that area. And you can tell just by the tenure of the employees. I mean, as I had mentioned, we have
starts at the
two
top.
employees that have been there for more than 20 years, but we have quite a few employees who've been there more than 10. And so it speaks volume about the kind of company we have and the culture of the company.
Speaks volumes about you.
Yeah, I think as a CEO, I'm certainly setting the tone for the culture, but I like to think my executive team has done a wonderful job with creating a quality culture within the company.
But you set the standard. So you can I'm a firm believer, yes, it's the team, but also the team is looking for you to set the standard.
Yes.
And if you set the standard of how people are treated and what you are willing to accept and not accept, they know where they know how to play. They know this is what we're dealing with and this is what's acceptable and what's not.
Yes.
I think when you're starting out, it's really hard. It's really hard to define what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, because a lot of things that you let slide in the beginning weren't a big deal because maybe the whole team's working around the clock. So it's if you have someone that's coming in late all the time, it's well, it's whatever because we've been through the ringer. But then at some point in time, it's that behavior might be reflective of other things.
Yes.
And maybe that person is no longer a good fit for your company. And I think that's a hard thing for early stage entrepreneurs to see. When is it time to, part ways with someone or put them in a different position?
Yeah.
Would you say if someone comes to you on your team and it's just I'm having a problem with this person or, it's not fair, I'm having to pull the weight of this person, is that too, do you feel at that point it is you should have done something about that other person beforehand? Well, if you're the manager or something.
What we've been training our executives to do is put them through a performance improvement plan. If you feel that this individual is, let's say, a C player, but they have potential to be an A player. How do you get them from a C player to an A player? And so you have to go, sometimes it's quickly just putting them on a performance improvement plan and saying, hey, here are the things that we feel are challenges. And, we think you have the potential to be this A player, but you have to help you get there. And so we're going to talk about this over the next couple of weeks. And we're going to go in one of two directions. Either you're going to continue to be this, and maybe it's not even a C player, right? Maybe they're a D or an E player, but you think they could possibly be an A player. And, there are people who say, you know what? I didn't realize that I was this player. I thought I was a B or A player, but I appreciate you identifying all these things for me. And you'd be shocked. There are people who just do a 180.
Really? Okay.
And then there's others who, 2 weeks later, they're just like, hey, I don't think this is the job for me. But at least you've had that dialogue, and they understand where they are. And we've kind of implemented that over the last few years, and it's made a big difference.
So you believe you can turn C players into A players if they're willing to?
100%.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Because I think a lot of leaders feel opposite of that. They feel like if you're not already, showing a lot of, if you're not already an A minus, you're not even in the running to be an A player. So that's an interesting, and I like that take because I kind of lean into that side of things too, is like I can see certain potential in people and I'm like, okay, these other things like just need more time.
Yeah. And actually we learned this through, I brought my entire team down to the Dominican Republic to on a retreat, my executive team and their spouses, and we brought a inspirational speaker named Jim Hunter on site, and he basically taught the team servant leadership, and so you by showing folks how to be do the right thing. You're actually showing it in your own actions as a leader, and they in turn will follow you. And so it's been really good, and the performance improvement plans are all part of that. You have to be able to identify who's a player from a C player from an E player, and you got to make sure you're having those conversations with them. And like I said, there are people who just need a conversation and to understand that they're not performing at the level that your company's expecting. And some people respond and some people don't. And honestly, the people who don't, it's better you're having that conversation and they're recognizing that they don't fit or this isn't the right job for them. It's okay.
Right.
You can agree to disagree and they can go their own direction, but at least you're not wasting any more time.
And I would like to add, like, having those difficult conversations makes everything so much easier.
Yeah.
And it really, like, I in my early days, I think I've avoided a lot of difficult conversations or just tried to, like, change things to be accommodating because it feels very complicated or it feels kind of not the right time or there's things, but I think because people do struggle with having difficult conversations. It's a skill set that if you didn't already gain it, I think throughout your life, it's something you have to gain as a leader. Like you can be a phenomenal entrepreneur and you can even be someone who's known for being direct. But if you can't have transparent conversations with empathy and compassion, but still also be like, this is exactly what it is. It doesn't move you. You don't step into the version of yourself that you need to be to lead your team to the next level. And you certainly can't expect them to step into the next version of themselves that you need them to be.
Exactly. And like I said, there's some people who really appreciate it and say, wow, that was a wake-up call for me. I didn't realize. I mean, I can think of somebody right now that's on the team that this happened very recently to him. And then there was another individual who was like, you know what, I had a, aha moment and realized this wasn't for me. And said, I'm just going to resign because I'm realizing this isn't what I want to do with my life. And it was like, okay, we understand that. We get it. So. And
that's probably exactly why it wasn't congruent.
Yeah, exactly.
To begin with.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, 26 years, that's amazing. You've grown this incredible company and you're impacting healthcare and ultimately our lives. And I hope that more practices implement your software and especially Ambient, because I think it's going to really transform the way that we receive care, the accuracy of our care, and ultimately extend our own lifespans as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the time, Danielle,
Yeah,
today.
thank you
I
for
appreciate
coming
you,
on.
speaking with me about this. And because, like I said, we're just trying to get the word out there about this new product. And so we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, you're my favorite. I love having you on. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.